New today, President Trump tackling a tough question about his leadership style from NBC's Meet the Press moderator, Kristen Welker, in an exclusive interview.
Let me ask you big picture. People who have lived in countries like the Philippines, Hungary, Russia, they look at some of your actions going after civil service, going after universities, law firms, the media. They say it's out of an authoritarian playbook. What do you say to those who believe you are taking the country down an authoritarian path?
Well, there you go again. Why don't you ask it a different way? Many people wanted to come into our country. Many people love Trump. I won the election. They didn't win the election. When you make these statements about people say this, people, well, you know, they had their chance at the election and they lost big.
Joining me now, Tim O'Brien, senior executive editor at Bloomberg Opinion and MSNBC political analyst and author of the bestseller Trump Nation, The Art of Being the Donald, and Molly Jong-Fast, MSNBC political analyst, host of the Fast Politics podcast and special correspondent for Vanity Fair. Good to see you both. Tim, you have known Trump for a long time. How do you interpret his answer?
Well, it was really a non-answer, Alex. You know, he was asked to respond to the question of why some people think he's an authoritarian, and he made it, he basically avoided answering it directly and said it had something to do ostensibly with people who lost the election and they lost the vote and it's sour grapes. The reason people are calling him an authoritarian is because he's attacking the foundations of the Constitution. He's putting judges in play. He's subverting and ignoring the law. He set up a confrontation with the Supreme Court in which he may just ignore any Supreme Court orders he gets as president. He is taking on the media, universities, basically every sort of foundation of civil society that has stood at one point or another in opposition to them, and he wants to bulldoze them, and that's the reason people think he's an authoritarian. And when it comes to him as a leader, he doesn't think about leadership as a platform from which he is trying to offer constructive solutions to complex problems. For Donald Trump, leadership is either about constantly surprising and shocking and stunning people so they're back on their heels, or convincing other people to follow him almost with a religious fervor. But none of it is about bringing people together to solve problems, to inspire people, to manage institutions in a rational and mature way. It is simply about self-aggrandizement. And that's not leadership, that's a movie.
Yeah, he's also taking on lawyers, law firms, courts, judges. I mean, it's extraordinary. But Molly, in an interview with The Atlantic, where Trump said, I run the country and the world. Trump was asked a similar question. He did not answer it directly, but instead talked about how he had been wronged. I mean, I've got to think you're going to sync up with a lot of what Tim said, but how do you see all this?
So, I mean, look, Trump said he was going to do all this stuff when he was running for president. You'll remember people would say, well, you don't really want to do revenge stuff. And he'd say, no, actually, I want to do revenge stuff. So I don't think he is super surprised by this. Like, I think this is sort of what we have. But remember, the disconnect with Trumpism was always that Trump, people would say, well, he's going to do this, he's going to do Project 2025. And voters would say, no, he didn't do it last time, right? Because last time he wasn't able to accomplish a lot of that stuff. And I think that's what we're seeing here, is he's able to do more. This is Trump unfettered. He doesn't have grownups in the room. So he ends up, with the sort of most grown up in the room is the one person who hasn't sort of totally discredited themselves, which is Marco, who has sort of been discredited instead by Trumpism as a whole. So, yeah, I mean, I just think, look, the guy's an authoritarian. And that's what we're seeing is, he's engaging in those he's an autocrat, and these are kind of authoritarian things he's doing.
There's a new report today that says 2 cryptocurrency investments owned by Trump-affiliated entities have made at least $300 million in trading fees alone on sales of his meme coin. That's just since January, Tim. The article also outlines how the president is making money while setting global economic policy. Should Americans be concerned about this?
If Americans want to make sure that public policy isn't being crafted to line the wallets of people in power, yes, they should be concerned about it. If American voters want to make sure that how the financial system operates is clean of self-interest and doesn't involve the president of the United States inviting people he does business with in the cryptocurrency realm into the White House for meetings, doesn't form policy propositions that include making crypto a reserve currency for the Treasury Department, that doesn't involve Donald Trump seeking to roll back Biden-era regulations on crypto that was aimed to offer watchdog surveillance of abuses in that market, all because of the fact that he has a financial interest in a crypto brokerage, and he and his children trade cryptocurrencies, that some of which are directly tied to Trump himself. So no, none of this is right. Presidents in ages past would have been so many miles away from what he's doing right now that it's a measure of how far we've fallen in terms of tolerating behavior in the Oval Office and standards of ethics and a lack of self-interest in the White House and by the president, that people should be shocked and concerned because it's damaging to the country's reputation and to public policy making.
I mean, look, Molly, Trump is making money hand over fist with his cryptocurrency, while at the same time, he's telling people, hey, come the holidays, you can't have $30, you can only have $3. I mean, how do you square that?
Well, so I think Democrats have a real opportunity here to run on a broad anti-corruption plank for them to say end congressional, like there's a huge amount of people who agree with this idea that members of Congress should not trade stocks, right? That's wildly popular, but somehow Congress never gets around to passing it. I would love to see Democrats sort of embrace these anti-corruption measures, the kind that were in place after Nixon. Democrats have a real opportunity here to say, look, Trump said he was going to make things cheaper, right? That was what he ran on. Now he's making things more expensive. Trump said he was going to drain the swamp. Now he's doing all these things that seem very swampy. And Democrats should say, like, you know, we are going to enact these broad rules against corruption. We're going to end congressional stock trading. We're going to really root out any of this and really start in from a place that's much more kind of, I would say, honest, and also just careful about these kind of, dual interests, so to speak.
Okay, Molly Jong-Fast and Tim O'Brien. I always love having you both on, so come back and see me again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
When